Coming up, the Omicron variant continues to spread, and now there is a case in the governor's mansion.
Dedicated to Eastern and Southern Kentucky, this is WYMT Mountain News at 11.
Good evening, I'm Steve Hensley. COVID levels remain at record highs in Kentucky, and now there is a case at the governor's mansion. Governor Andy Beshear opened his news conference this afternoon with word that his son has tested positive. He is doing okay. The first family is now taking precautions. Meanwhile, the state reported 3,912 new cases today, bringing our case total to just more than 1,085,000. There were 22 deaths reported today as well, putting the Commonwealth's death toll now at 12,763. The positivity rate is now more than 33%, and it's never been that high. The Commonwealth has experienced record-breaking COVID-19 stats for several weeks now, reflecting just how fast the Omicron variant is spreading. Dr. Stephen Stack took over for Governor Beshear during the weekly COVID-19 briefing this afternoon. WYMT's Zach Hawk breaks down the latest trends.
94 to 95% of all of the COVID deaths in Kentucky since July 1st are in unvaccinated persons.
Since the Omicron surge first hit, testing demand has spiked, exceeding capacity despite testing sites statewide doubling the number of reported tests. Those tests revealed a pandemic high, more than 83,000 new cases last week.
These are records we'd be grateful not to set week after week and day after day now.
And hospitalizations are following the increase in positive cases, but those cases are not as severe as in previous waves.
Mercifully, the disease is not quite hitting people quite as hard, and it's not filling the hospitals proportionally to the same extent.
Dr. Stack attributes that to vaccines and prior infections. Further evidence is in that ICU utilization is well below peak levels last fall, and fewer people require ventilators. But the danger COVID-19 poses to the healthcare system as a whole remains.
We're running out of healthcare workers. And so there's a lot of beds in hospitals, and there's a lot of ventilators and a lot of other equipment, but not a lot of people to operate all this stuff.
He attributes the shortage to stress brought on by short staffing and daily trauma.
They are seeing death at a frequency and a regularity which is really unprecedented in any of our modern living histories. You'd have to go to a battlefield circumstance to get something comparable to the rate of death that they face on a regular basis in the hospital.
Wearing masks in public, staying home if sick, and getting vaccinated all help ease the burden on our hospitals. Zach Hawk, WYMT Mountain News.
Federal health officials cautiously believe that the Omicron variant may have peaked in some locations. And last week, the White House's COVID response team said that we may be moving towards a time when COVID will not disrupt our daily lives. Perry County is one of several school systems across the state suffering from a staffing shortage due to the number of employees out with COVID. School officials say they will use NTI days for the rest of the week in hopes of giving students and staff time to quarantine before returning to in-person learning. The goal is for the school district to be open and in person again by next week.
If we can safely get kids to school, safely supervise them when they're there, we want to be back in person. But we'll monitor it as the week goes on and make a decision next weekend.
School officials say they will be in contact with the health department to make the best decisions for staff and students moving forward. The restaurant industry continues to feel the impact of the pandemic. The National Restaurant Association says 88% of restaurants experienced a decline in demand in recent weeks due to the Omicron variant. And a new survey found that 76% of restaurant operators are seeing a decline in business, even worse than just 3 months ago. The hardship comes as restaurants are still trying to recoup losses from the last 2 years.
We saw clouds increase through the afternoon today, even beginning in the morning. A little bit of sunshine out there. Either way, we had temperatures on the warm side, at least by early January or late January standards out there. As of right now, we're actually seeing a few sprinkles work through the mountains. You see the I-64 camera at Moorhead, a little bit of dark pavement there, meaning that we've seen a little bit of rain. Obviously still seeing a little bit of the snow on the ground from last week. Downtown Whitesburg, not much has happened there yet. with temperatures still around 40 and mostly cloudy skies out there. We were warm today. Not quite London warm. That was a little bit of a faulty sensor there, but the rest of us got up into the mid and upper 40s, even some low 50s. Somerset 50, Monticello 51 right now. Well, we're starting to cool off into the low 40s. Look at Irvin already at 39, joining Ashland. Satellite and radar, a lot of this isn't reaching the ground, but this whole thing is along a frontal boundary that will be heading our direction as we head through the rest of the night tonight. So that'll cool us off. Lows tonight, some of those showers, some of those sprinkles could turn to a few flurries late. We're down to near freezing. Eventually, we get to near freezing because the high tomorrow is going to be right after the clock strikes midnight tonight. I'll have the details on some colder weather and when we'll moderate that coming up in just a little bit. Steve?
All right, Evan, thank you. The rush is on ahead of tomorrow's filing deadline for this year's elections in Kentucky. It was pushed back to tomorrow afternoon to give the legislature more time to get redistricting done. Among the late filings, a member of the House Democratic leadership, Angie Hatton of Letcher County, picked up 2 Republican challengers. Jacob Justice of Elkhorn City and Brandon Edwards of Baxter filed in the 94th District. There are also some crowded city and county races around the state. The primary election is May 17th. While in quarantine, Governor Beshear shared some good news today for Eastern Kentucky communities. The Kentucky Division of Abandoned Mine Lands is accepting applications for 2022 AML grants. The deadline to submit for a grant is April 1st, 2022. The governor says these grants are creating hundreds of jobs and helping grow Eastern Kentucky communities.
Since the program's inception, 63 projects in 23 counties in Kentucky have received collectively $138 million in funding.
Previous successful grant applications include industrial development, workforce training, infrastructure, tourism, agriculture, and community wellness projects. Attorney General Daniel Cameron is adding a new position to his office to help law enforcement agencies with violent crimes. The new resource prosecutor position will be added to the Prosecutor's Advisory Council. Their role is to help in prosecutions of violent crimes or capital offenses. Attorney General Cameron says those cases are incredibly complex. Today, he appointed Thomas Lockridge to the position. Lockridge is a former Commonwealth's attorney. A man charged in a deadly hit and run has now entered a plea. Attorneys entered a not guilty plea this morning in Rowan County for 44-year-old Andy Baldridge. Sheriff's deputies arrested him yesterday. He's facing charges of murder and leaving the scene of an accident. The sheriff's office says he hit and killed 91-year-old Lonnie Leach Saturday on Oak Grove Road. Baldridge will be back in court next Monday for a preliminary hearing. With people becoming more aware of phone scams, scammers are getting more creative. Gilbert Achardo with the Laurel County Sheriff's Office says one of the more creative scams they've seen is someone calling people saying their son or daughter has been in an accident or has been arrested, and in order for their child to receive medical help or meet bail, they must send the caller thousands of dollars.
And sometimes we let our fear kick in and our alarm kick in, and we don't use our good common sense and say, hey, wait just a minute, let me make some phone calls and check on my son or check on my daughter.
Achardo says if you do not recognize the number calling you, it's best not to answer the phone. If someone important is trying to contact you, they will more than likely leave a message. Students in Pike County are sewing up a little something to give back to babies in need. The East Ridge High School Practical Living class is learning life skills, and the latest lesson is all about sewing. Students started crafting handmade quilts, which will not only teach them sewing basics, but will later become a donation to the Appalachian Pregnancy Care Center.
And you learn to give, and that's the big thing, that you bring a bright spot for somebody that it may not be a bright spot.
Resource teacher Maudie Justice hopes to have the class complete 10 baby quilts to be donated to the center. We all know exercise is good for us, but just 10 minutes a day does a body good. On Monday, the medical journal JAMA Internal Medicine published a study on the impact of modest daily physical activity. The study looked at the physical activity of more than 4,800 adults between the ages of 40 and 85 for a week. Researchers found just 10 minutes a day of modest to vigorous exercise could prevent about 110,000 deaths a year. Researchers say the more physical activity, the greater the benefits. We now know when movies will start playing again at the historic Kentucky Theater in downtown Lexington. The new management group, Friends of the Kentucky Theater, says they'll have a soft reopening on Friday. Only classic movies will be shown for right now. The group says they may not be able to show first-run films until March because they are still waiting on some parts to arrive. The historic theater will turn 100 this year. Leading up to the anniversary, the Kentucky Theater will screen one film a month from each decade of Kentucky's history. Certainly a neat place. Coming up at 11, many communities in our region face a lack of dental care. We'll show you how one group is trying to bridge the great health divide by working with children.
But first, temperatures look to stay either seasonable or bitterly cold. There doesn't seem to be any in between. I'll have the very latest on the way next.
Here are 5 big reasons to buy it.